Hello and welcome to my first ever YouTube video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be reading Hawks X listener fan fiction. This is a Soulmate AU. This was written by Writing Freak on Tumblr. Unlike most, you were dreading the day you met your soulmate. You lived in a world in which people wore their soul marks proudly, and it wasn't uncommon to find bright marks dotting people's faces, arms, necks, collarbones. Your mother had a soul mark on her right shoulder which matched your father's marks on the tips of his fingers. You always found her wearing clothes that displayed the dark handprints. They turn dark once it has been touched, never wanting to cover it up. You, on the other hand, didn't like people to see your soul mark, because instead of being a handprint on your shoulder, a mark on your hands that you've shook or brushed on your arms, you bump into each other on the street. You have a very different soul mark. Just above your hips on the right side of your waist were two big handprints grabbing you from behind. You don't exactly know the context of when or where, under what circumstances your soulmate would grab you by the hips, but you also weren't stupid. The only guesses you could come up with involved your soulmate being some kind of perv. So no, you weren't looking forward to meeting them. And it wouldn't be until you met them that you changed your mind. You weren't expecting it to be such a lively day when you woke up that morning, deciding real quick to take a last-minute trip to the grocery store before your friends came over for dinner that afternoon. It was a pretty mundane morning, to be quite honest, and most out of the ordinary thing that you did was deciding to have a bowl of cereal instead of your daily cup of coffee for breakfast. It was sunny out, which is a nice change because it's been such a rainy week. So you had no problem walking the 15 minutes or so to the store. It was a decision you made when you were about halfway there. Looking back, it may not have been the best choice. The streets were crowded. It appeared everyone had the same idea as you, and you were becoming uncomfortable with the massive groups. You saw a smaller street ahead, one you recognized from when you had lived in the area as a child, and decided to take a shortcut. As you turned onto the street, you realized it had changed a lot over the years. The houses that had once housed families with children your age looked abandoned, and the overgrowth of trees on the side of the road blocked a lot of the sunlight. You weren't even halfway down the road when you decided you were going to turn back. But when you spun around quickly before you could change your mind, you were met face to face with a man you hadn't realized was right behind you. There was a flash of pain, and you felt the man's body connect with yours. You were tackled off the street and found yourself on the ground, rubbing your elbows where you had fallen on them. The man had leapt back. He was facing you with a menacing grin on his face. You struggled to stand facing the man that now you looked at him in his strange suit and a mask hanging from his face you realized was a villain. You were frozen to the spot, unable to move, as the villain stared you down. Unfortunately, for you, the villain had tackled you in a dark alley, and since you hadn't been on the main street anyway, you were worried that no one would see you, and no one would come to your rescue. But no matter how much you knew in that moment that your fate rested in your hands, you simply could not move, rooted to the spot, your intense fear sweeping over you. But your theory about not being seen must have been wrong, for seconds later you heard a pair of sweeping wings fly over you. You hoped and prayed it was a hero or a helpful civilian and not another villain. But based on the man in front of you's reaction, it wasn't someone he liked. The villain lashed out with his quirk, a pair of steel bars coming flying at you, but you heard one more sweep of wings, and a pair of arms grabbed your waist and flew out of the way just before the bars could impale your chest. Despite the circumstances and your racing heart, your attention immediately went to the hands on your waist, which seemed to be radiating some sort of warmth, a warmth that spread through your entire body. And even as the hands left your waist to wrap around your body, lifting you from the ground to get further and further away from the scene, the warmth never left, sending an unexpected sort of comfort with you as your savior took you to the skies. You never liked heights, but it was over in an instant, and you were set into a solid ground, or so you thought. You were a little dizzy from the flight. Within seconds, the arms left and you jumped away, turning to finally get a good look at the person who had saved your life. You certainly weren't expecting to see the number 2 pro hero Hawks, with his red wings spread behind him and his mouth open wide in shock. But a sudden breeze flew over you, stronger than you were used to, and your attention was momentarily brought to your surroundings. "Are we in a roof?" you asked uncourteously, looking around you. All of the words seemed to break the hero in front of you out of his trance, and he finally began tearing his black gloves off, looking at his hands in amazement. His gaze had shifted to you, and the time you took to blink, he was right there, holding your waist as he pulled you closer. "What are you doing?" But Hawks didn't listen, as he was currently pulling up your shirt, which happened to be tucked into your jeans. Before you could try to push him off, your soulmate's marks were revealed, and while the wind on your bare skin was biting, as the man now behind you, his fists and his fingers over the marks on your skin, where they fit perfectly, warmth like before spread through you. The marks had turned black in the time it had taken you to fly to the roof. His hands were lifted from your skin, but then he was turning you around to face him. You could only stare into his golden eyes with the same look he had given you before, and your mouth hanging open in shock. He looked more composed, and a sly sort of grin crossed his face as he narrowed his eyes at you. It was all the consuming in his gaze, and you felt your breathing knocked from your lungs as you couldn't look away. His smile never faded. Even as he talked, his eyes were glued to yours permanently, it seemed. You are way too close for you to focus. I have a feeling by the look on your face that you don't know who I am, little dove. As he said, oh my God, the first words he spoke to you, his voice unexpectedly deep and husky. But as much as I regret having to say this, I don't know who you are. Care to introduce me? You realized you couldn't speak, but as Hawks looked at you unexpectedly, you cleared your throat. I'm YN. His smile grew wider, if that's even at all possible. What a lovely name, YN. I do believe we are soulmates. You realized suddenly as his arms were at your sides. Don't you have a patrol to be doing? You asked nervously, feeling breathless as you felt the distance between your bodies closing very slowly. I would say that I have a pretty good excuse. It's not every day you meet the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. OMG, that was so cute. I'm sorry for all the stuttering. I'm not the best reader, and again, this is my first video, so I'm new to this all. But regardless, I really hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your day.